knocking. That's the one. So I'm going to talk right into the mic. I don't know if you might have to adjust the volume a little bit because similar to Dave, Mr. Johans, I'm a performer. I'm a musician. I'll give you a little bit of background. My name is Matthew Glowacki. My dad's Polish. My mum's from Manchester, so I'm a Manchester United fan. Back from the old Georgie Best days. I've been in real estate 7 years. I started out, I know a whole bunch of people, and I'm very passionate about music. I was, in my other life, I suppose, I was a professional musician. So I was doing a lot of fly-in, fly-out gigs all over the world, touring in the Caribbean in the wintertime, touring in Europe in the summertime. One of the best gigs I had, actually, for a few years before I started my career in real estate was playing in a Beatles tribute band, which was super cool. I was Ringo, of course, because I play drums and I sing. So, and it was great. We were doing like 2,000-seat theaters, on cruise ships and stuff like that, and it was a lot of fun. And to your point, actually, David, if you don't mind me sort of just bringing that about, I find that we're really passionate, especially about music, because music is hard. But anything worth doing is hard, right? Door knocking is the same thing, and any prospecting for that matter. If it's not hard, it's not worth doing, And what you end up getting is a lot more success from it. And I've been fortunate enough to, overcome some of my fears. Do I still get the jitters about approaching the door? Absolutely. Do I still second guess myself every time I'm going to doors and when somebody slams it in my face and says no thanks or I'm not interested or whatever? Absolutely. But I do it. Part of overcoming that, I think, too, is just growing into, it's experience for sure, but we're confident people, right? Like, you're in sales. I mean, we know how to talk to people. We know how to sell. You can close deals, right? So there's no difference. It's all a lateral shift. So to your point too, like, there's a lot of passion that I bring to door knocking and stuff too, and yeah, sometimes it sucks. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna paint it gold or put lipstick on a pig. It's sometimes it's really cold and it's terrible. Sometimes it's raining and people won't let you in because they don't care, right? But I don't care either. So I'm gonna be there knocking on your door, because there's business to be had out there, and you need to get in front of more people. So this is what I learned. I'm like I said, 7 years in the business. Sorry, I'll backtrack a little bit. I was working for one of the top teams at Keller Williams as well, and it was great. They were energetic. It was a great team. Really good environment for sort of hitting the ground running, getting your feet wet, getting into everything. You're getting leads. You're getting, go get this lease. Go. We've got an open house here. We got to, And then we would do team door knocking campaigns, because I basically brought up. They said, and one of the things with Keller Williams is they talk about the one thing, Gary Keller, if you've learned about that a little bit, or if you know about it, and it's very true. I mean, these are all like great gems, and door knocking is definitely like more traditional way to go about getting business, but like, why reinvent the wheel, right? Like, it works. You go out in your neighborhood, you're an expert in your neighborhood because you live there. Go and share with those people around in your community. I go walk my dog now, and I get, pestered about, oh, damn, Matthew, blah, 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 about the sales and this and that and whatever, right? So it becomes part of you as well. I mean, again, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Sometimes it sucks. but it can be really, really rewarding. And when you get, we're all inspired when you make a deal, right? And when you start to gain, how inspiring. Trisha, Carrie, Team Malik, same sort of thing, like all the energy and everything like that, it starts to flow into what you do, right? So if you're going up with positive energy, and I was coaching with a friend of mine as well as John, and they said, take a video and post it, because it's great when you're being accountable, and you need to be accountable to yourself, and I try and go door knocking 3 to 4 times a week, about 4 hours a day. So, you're going to be, you're less, you're not going to get to as many doors, because it's slower than like cold calling. Cold calling, you get through a lot more numbers, but my conversion rate is way higher when I get in front of people. And that's what I discovered for myself, was that I'm good in front of people. This is what I like to do. I like to talk to people. And I can talk and talk and talk and talk and talk. So, I mean, it's good that there's a timer counting down, because otherwise you guys would be like, holy jeez. But you know, it definitely works out, because, you know, I'm passionate about it. I really like it. The people that, you know, you meet through door knocking and stuff too, that you maybe, you know, are a bit stiff, or maybe they're having a bad day and they slam the door in your face, or they tell you off, or leave me alone, or whatever, you'll wear them down. Just keep going. Don't worry about it. They're just having a bad day. It's again a whole mindset activity too that you need to you know, really sort of tell yourself and overcome. So whether it's affirmations or anything like that, what I found very empowering recently is that when I'm going door knocking, I'll record a video when I'm walking to the neighborhood or the street that I'm going to start on, and I just put a video on and I say, okay, I'm being accountable to you and to me and to, you know, anybody who cares. I'm going door knocking and I'm going to find business today. And the last time I went and did that, I got 3 appointments, 2 listing appointments, and another person looking for an investment property. And thank you. Yeah. But again, like, I'm not going to lie, not every day do I tell myself I'm going to get business, right? Because sometimes you're like, damn it, I don't really want to go out there and do this again, you know? But at the same time, I just do it. You just do it. It's rinse and repeat, you know? You don't have to reinvent the wheel here or anything like that. It's there are secrets, I would say. There's certain things that you know, let's say do's and don'ts. But you know, and we can go over some of that kind of stuff. And I mean, how many people door knock again? Yeah, so not bad, not bad. So what I mean, a lot of people will go the lead generation route in terms of like online lead generation, stuff like that, cold calling as well. Again, you know, cold calling's great. I still do cold calling. I do door knocking. That's my primary focus, and then I buffer with online lead generation. So I find that, you know, you can't just do one thing. You should do multiple avenues of lead generation. Another thing that I've gotten into as well that's been great, and I can talk about this maybe another time or whatever at length, is doing seminars. Seminars are really, really great. My sister's a lawyer, my wife's a lawyer, and so I got into a couple of law firms, and like my first seminar was for 60 people. And I mean, I got like 50 leads out of that, you know, like it was great because everybody puts their information in, you know, you pass around the iPad, like just enter your information in. We're going to do a draw for a Starbucks gift card or whatever, you know. So I mean, it's that kind of thing, and you can capture a lot of people's information, and then again, you know, like we've been talking about, I mean, the whole afternoon and stuff too, and today, it's about presenting some form of value and stuff too, right? So, you know, some do's and don'ts, I think sort of simple things to start out with, you know, do some research. Like, don't go out just blind. I can improvise like you wouldn't believe. Dave, you know, as musicians, that's kind of what we do. But you don't want to be improvising, because when somebody says, well, what did that place sell for? You're like, you know, that's, yeah. You want to go in your neighborhood and know that, like, you know, but this is the best part. You go and do a little bit of research. When I went out and I got those, the 2 appointments and the investor, you know, somebody had just sold down the street for $400,000 over asking. So I got on my horse and you know, went out the door. Knock, 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 knock. Right? So, and you know, and sure, I knock on the door, and actually another great thing that I've learned that I developed with the team and just through sort of experience is that people like handwritten notes. So thank you cards go a long way. If you have any kind of conversation with somebody, just go back and drop off a thank you card. You know, it doesn't have to be your business card or anything. Just a small, like, just thank you. Thank you for having a conversation with me. People are absolutely touched by this, and I've had a lot of feedback from this kind of stuff. So it's incredibly helpful, and it goes a long way, and it's really like one of those inspiring moments too that makes you feel good as well. So when you go back and you actually drop in a thank you card, I mean, it could be a simple conversation. Maybe you captured their information or whatever the case may be, but it's simple and it works. It really does work. It's good for you, and it's good for them, of course.
Very true.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. You know, and that's one of the things we have to remember, like some of those, this is what I think what speaks to me the most about door knocking too, is that it is slightly slower than cold calling, let's say, because you know, I get on Mojo or whatever, and you got the 3 lines going, you're like, but I'm like, and it's fine, and I can do that, I don't mind the cold calling, but I like the pace of door knocking because, you know, while you always have conversations with yourself. It's always going to happen. But you know, if I knock and I have like a decent conversation, maybe we spoke a little bit about the neighborhood or whatever, and they're just not interested. You know, I've been here 20 years, or you get the same excuse like they're going to carry me out of here in a coffin. I go, oh, when's that going to be? Right? And you laugh, and that's exactly what they do. They laugh because they're like, oh, it's, you know, I mean, it's a bit morbid, but I'm like, well, you made the joke. Like, I'm just, you know, when? I got the calendar right here. You have a date in mind? I'll mark it in my calendar. We'll do business later. But, you know, yeah, please.
Has that ever backfired on you?
I mean, everything has backfired on me. Absolutely everything. I've fallen on my face. I've tripped over the door. I've gone up to the door and completely forgot what I was going to say. And I'm like, I got to come back. And I've walked away. And then 10 doors later, I come back and I'm like, I remember now. Are you thinking of making a move anytime soon? No? Okay. But I mean, like, that's the best part too. Like, you can make it a bit more fun because you're face to face with people. You can break down those barriers a lot easier than when you're on the phone. When you don't see anybody, you don't see the reaction, there's nothing there. Like, there's no context to anything, right? It's really tough. And I applaud people because there's a lot of people that are great on the phones and can have great conversion. I'm about 3 for 100, maybe 4 or 5 for 100 if on a decent day. Well, you know, in terms of leads, right? Out of 100 phone calls, I'll get like, you know, maybe 4 or 5 leads in cold calling. But door knocking, like 20? Yeah. Yeah, because face to face, yes, please.
How do you usually start the conversation? Like, what do you say?
Great question. So, and again, I'm like a tangent express, right? So I just like go off on tangents left, right, and center. It's just kind of how I am. But the general consensus and focus is real estate, right? So we want to be talking about real estate in any sort of context. And this is really what's come about through my experience door knocking as well, is that, you know, people want to know information and they like it when you just provide some sort of value. So whatever it takes. So usually I start the conversation like, hi, I'm Matthew. I'm a local real estate agent. I'm just curious, you know, if you know about the values in your neighborhood right now, currently. All right? Pretty open-ended question. No. Great. Did you know that your neighbor just sold down the street for $400,000 over asking? Do you know what a multiple offer situation is? Like, would you ever consider making a move if you could get $400,000 over whatever price you think you're going to get for your property? And then you start into like sort of some of those magic questions like, you know, if there were no boundaries, right? If you could move anywhere, if you could live anywhere, where would that be? Where would you go? What would you do? Because most people will say to you, well, I don't want to move. Or great, I'm going to get a great price for my house. Well, I still have to buy something. What am I going to buy? In this market, everything's like, you know, a little while ago, 2 weeks ago, 3, no. But you know, I mean, when you're in a shift, and don't get me wrong, when you're in a shift, some other places, and you know, the luxury market isn't necessarily in a shift. There was a $17 million house that sold in 5 days, right? There's a $9 million house in Winfields right now that's like absolutely gorgeous, and there's people going, you know, it's going in and out, and lots of showings and stuff too. So there's areas that are always hot. There's always hot commodities. In the luxury market, typically those people aren't nearly as affected as sort of the general population when there's market shifts. So they're looking for investment properties. I mean, rents are super hot right now, so that's another point of contention to talk about, you know, to people about investment properties, because rents are super high. A lot of people are losing their shirt in the stock market, so there's probably going to be a number of investors coming back to the market very soon, if not, you know, if people aren't already doing investments with them. I'm actually doing a video series as well, starting one myself, doing some investment properties for international investing, and also just like out of the city per se, and stuff like that. There's still some great cap rates in the city, and you can get to those good investments. But generally speaking, when the cap rates are like 3 or 4%, you're losing money for the first 2 or 3 years of an investment property, right? So you will gain, you will have equity gains there, but like if you're looking for a cash flowing property, you know, Toronto is very difficult to navigate in terms of finding something like that that's going to be cash flowing for you. You really have to start looking outside of the city and into, you know, places. What I always like to do and say and is, you know, we're always recommending to our clients, buy in a good school district, right? Buy in a university town. You go to a university town, there's always good investments to be had there. There's a ton of students that are going there. You know, in Peterborough, you can get a house still for under $600,000 detached with a backyard. And you can rent it and be cash flowing on that property, like now. You know, and so there's definitely opportunities there. Around the 7% mark is where you're going to be cash flowing and up from there. In Costa Rica, there's 18% cap rates. In Bahamas, there's a 15% cap rate. I mean, it's $6 million, but it makes $18,000 a week. It's pretty impressive. That's a good salary. Yes?
I have two questions. When you are door knocking and you're talking to people, do you have a system to which you take their information?
Yes, excellent question. So I used to use Spodio, which was like an app that used GPS. So it basically came up with the address where you were. And then you could enter, it had like a red, orange, and green sort of like not a lead or not home, you know, lead, and then the information that you get, or like hot lead or something like that, where you could, you know, it was somebody that you needed to follow up with right away or something. I was actually, we were just talking about this a little bit too, because they changed, yeah, that's right, Carrie and I were chatting about this too. Some of these you just have to be a little bit careful and wary of some of these third-party apps because they're basically out to collect information. So what I try and stick to now is just Follow Up Boss or KV Core or whatever system you use. They will generally have an app, and you can just direct enter the information into the app, and that's the best way. So it's like right into your CRM right away, because then, you know, like anytime you have to take 2 steps, it's just so inefficient, right? So, and I'm all about efficiency, whether it seems like it or not, because I talk all around, But yeah, I mean, I do like to be efficient. So when I'm doing stuff like door knocking, rather than fumbling for anything or whatever, I just add them as a contact. I just go to like right to KV Core app and just open it, and they're right in my database right away. I did that with Follow Up Boss as well. So when I was with the team, it was Follow Up Boss, and that's a good. It's a good CRM. I mean, there's tons of good CRMs out there. That's totally fine. What I like about KV Core is that it has an IDX as well, right? So you can check out properties on there and stuff too, or it's tied in. Yeah.
How do you keep in touch with the person that you're connected with once to just keep the conversation going?
Sorry.
For example, like you go and do a door knock, the person is not wanting to sell, but they give you the information to just stay in touch.
Yeah.
What are you doing? What are the steps to kind of like follow up with that person?
Excellent question. So, and this is where I think so many of us are lacking. Which is the follow-up, right? So you can go out and have a good day of door knocking, and you sort of feel good about yourself. It's kind of like you're high-fiving yourself and like whatever. And you're like, you know, I got some business, and like I'm feeling good, you know. Did nobody slam the door in my face today? Got some leads. And then they just sit there and like collect dust almost, you know. So what I try and do is if somebody gives me their information and really about, it is very systematic for sure. You want to go out and ask a series of important questions. It's always sort of leading them to something like, you know, open-ended questions are great, but you do want to get to a point where you're either giving them some sort of advice about maybe finances or you know, possible investment property, or maybe they're interested in market values and things like that. That's generally the case. So if you say, well, look, you know, I live in the neighborhood, and this is generally what happens with, especially when you're farming an area, you know, when you're in the neighborhood and you can go and talk to people, and you can say, well, look, you know, I'll just give you like a monthly newsletter sort of thing, like email newsletter or whatever. Some people like the printed versions, and I take note of that, and I'll print it out and give them a hard copy, because I can give them a card and just like a little like, you know, thank you, or every once in a while I'll give them a gift certificate. And I'll tell you a great story about door knocking in just a second as well. But absolutely, very systematically, so you collect the information, I put it in the database, and I definitely drip on them with like a campaign, a monthly newsletter or that kind of thing with monthly sales and stuff like that. The pockets are really key this way too, because it doesn't, as you all know, I mean, certain neighborhoods don't contain they'll contain part of the pocket that you're in, or maybe part of your farm market, but part of your farm market's also in another part of the neighborhood. So this is where it kind of, it's a much more personalized approach as well, because you can actually collect like more specific information, and it's slightly different than what they're sort of reading about and stuff as well. And then, an article will come out and sort of back you up as well, because it'll say, like BlogTO will come out with something that says, oh, home sales, blah, 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 and or competitive rents and like this and that and the other. So it's, that's a great way. It's definitely, you definitely do want to follow up with a systematic approach that way. I think that's key, and a lot of these CRMs have these drip campaigns and stuff like that, which is excellent, because I've got 1,500 people in my database, and like in order to, drip and call all those people, it takes a while. Like I can't follow up with everybody by phone all the time. So as long as I know that, maybe like by every quarter I will for sure, but as long as I know that like the CRM is taking care of part of that as well. So I'll give you a little bit of a story of going out and door knocking. So this was fairly early on in my real estate career. I was like, okay, we're going door knocking. We're going to take this down. I know Roncesvalles. I've grown up in Roncesvalles. I know it, well. I want to trade in Roncesvalles. I really like it. It's a great place. Great for artists and all that kind of stuff too. There was some great music venues, although Gate 403 is now gone, and Hughes Room I think too. But nevertheless. So and it's kind of a quirky neighborhood. There's a lot of Victorian houses. There's a lot of really great places. Sort of the northwest side. You get on Bowstead and Hewitt and places like that, Alhambra. There's really nice lots, bigger houses and stuff. You get a little bit further south towards Queen Street, and again, like lots of Victorians and stuff along Roncesvalles. Lots of places are cut up for apartments and stuff too. If anybody's looking for like leases and things like that, it's actually better to go into the neighborhood and go to like the local coffee shop and stuff too, because they're very sort of inclusive. It's a very like neighborhoody vibe there and stuff too, and it's kind of hipster, and it's and all that sort of stuff, right? Which is, I mean, it's fun. It's a great neighborhood. So we were doing a team door knock. So I go out and I'm knocking on doors, and I knew some about the area sales. There was a couple places that went over asking. A few places, at that time, the price point for like a 30 by 120 lot was, somewhere around like 1.8, maybe something like that, 1.7. So it was, it was good with some renos and things like that. So I'm door knocking, hit a couple people, a couple of tenants. I don't live here. I'm like, great. When are you thinking of buying? So that's one of that I do with any renters. I'm like, fantastic, what's your plan for purchasing? Well, I don't have a plan. Well, why don't you have a plan? Like, don't you want to get into the market? And then you start to talk about that whole thing. And like that can, again, it's not going to work every time, but like you get a conversation going, right? Like if they're not thinking about it, that's fine. If they have a whatever sort of job and they're not really, those plans are far off, I tend to move on, especially now. Like, especially with business, like, I was always about collecting like anybody, any lead from anywhere, right? It's like, oh yeah, I'm thinking of trading in real estate, 5 years down the road. I put them in my database, I'm gonna follow up with this guy in 5 years. And it's like, that's never gonna happen, right? And just like these timelines, like the shorter the timeline, the better, because then you're gonna focus on that, right? That's definitely gonna happen. So I knock a few houses, I get to this one house, really beautiful, Victorian style, and it's kind of quirky and stuff like that too. Lovely lady comes to the door, and we start a conversation. We're chatting. I was like, thinking of making a move anytime soon? Well, no, I plan on staying here. I bought here 3 years ago, and she's just very nice. It was a really nice, personable conversation. And she said, but you know what? You might want to try Alhambra, because there's a shelter that's actually moving into the neighborhood on the other side, facing like on Roncesvalles. Well, it's actually Dundas before Dundas turns into Roncesvalles. So Dundas turns north-south for a little bit, and then it goes south of Bloor, and then Roncesvalles continues north-south, if you know Toronto, whatever. So there was a men's shelter that was going in there. And they said, there's some people that have been here for a while, and they're thinking that, this might not be the best thing for the neighborhood. Maybe they're thinking of making a move. So some of the people that had been there for a while. So I was like, wow, thank you so much. Like, that's fantastic. She goes, yeah, no problem. So, we had sort of mapped out some streets that I was gonna take care of as part of my sort of team door knocking thing. But as soon as she gave me this little tidbit, I was like, well, I'm going off script now, and I'm gonna go and hit Alhambra. So I'm walking by, I hit, a few doors, and I was like, oh, were you aware, I guess you're aware that there's a men's shelter that's coming in, and, and what do you think about that? Are you motivated to move? Blah, 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 blah. So started some really great conversations, ran into a prospect, and she said, yeah, I'm thinking, we were thinking of maybe even renting our place out. We're not really quite sure what we're going to get for it, but maybe we'll just move. And I was like, trying to find my phone, like, oh my God, a lead. And sure enough, so I took her information. We booked an appointment, went there and sat down, got the listing. At that time, sold. We had we held off offers for 2 weeks because it was because in Roncesvalles it's one of these pockets that's there's a lot of action there, and at the time it was a hot super hot market, and so we held offers for 2 weeks. I had 130 showings. 130 booked appointments, people coming through. We open housed, it was bananas, and it was a semi. At that time, we sold for the highest price on the street. And while I was in that, while I was taking that listing, the neighbor that I'd spoke to down the street, and I went to tell her first because she was interested. And this was a semi, 2-story, 3-bed, 2-bath. They put a nice kitchen in, and it had a little backyard. It was a very, very cute place. And the neighbor down the street, actually, she was a designer. She took an old Victorian and gutted the whole thing. In-floor heating throughout, white oak flooring, some beautiful details, roll-up door out the back. Just did an absolutely beautiful design on the property. And that one sold for the highest price. I took that listing as well. And that was an incredible feeling. It was just fantastic. And then of course I was hitting around the neighborhood and stuff too, and it builds momentum. So you just gain traction and momentum, and that's when you really need to and this is funny because this always happens, right? You sort of have a win and you're like, all right, let's go celebrate. Okay, I celebrated, back to work. Because if you celebrate for too long, all the momentum just drops off, right? You have to get it while the getting's good. And I mean, you really start to sink your teeth into it, I feel like anyway, as soon as you get some traction, because you're gaining that confidence, you're getting that momentum. You guys can attest to this. I mean, this is what happens, right? Listing sold, listing sold, listing sold. It's you're not going to stop and take a vacation. You're like, no, man, I got listings. And I get that because it's when you gain some momentum and some traction, it's huge. So that's It was really, really fun. It was very, very meaningful for me to do, that kind of door knocking. Now that I've come to,
Not you.
it was me? I don't think it was me. Eh? I don't know. Anyway, it was very meaningful to go and do that. That was in West End Toronto. I moved, just dumb luck, not like a crazy thing, but I sold my condo townhouse for more money than I bought a detached house in Pickering in the pandemic. My wife came to me in May pulling her hair out, and she's like, this is not working. We have 2 small kids. I got a 3 and a 5-year-old who are now 3 and 5. They were 1 and 3 at the time. And pandemic, right? Not my situation was no worse or better than anybody else's, but we were all dealing with our own, demons at that time. I was doing daddy daycare downstairs, and then while the kids were napping, I'm making calls like a fiend trying to get business done because it was what the hell is going on? And everything was closed down. There was caution tape around the parks and stuff. And, it was what the hell? And my wife, we slid, because condo townhouse, it was 1,000 square feet. So the bedroom, the primary bedroom was not very big. And so we slid a desk in, because she had to close, she's a insurance defense lawyer. So she had to make calls and discoveries, and she's on important phone calls and Zoom calls and these meetings and stuff. So we had to slide this desk into our bedroom so that she could close the door because the kids were downstairs. And I mean, me running daycare was not a good idea. But nevertheless, I mean, you got to do what you got to do, right? Kids were learning some good stuff, I'm sure. I'll probably hear about it later on, and I'll be like, oh yeah, maybe that wasn't so smart. But anyway, and but we made it work. And again, she was like, we need more space. So I started looking around, we were sort of the humming and hawing or whatever. Her dad actually is in Ajax, And so we ended up finding this great little pocket in Rosebank. And like I said, I mean, I got a 50 by 110 foot lot with a house on it for less money than I sold my condo townhouse in Toronto, which was like mind-blowing to me. And then we were very, very fortunate and blessed because Durham's on fire. It's been on fire. And the market went up, and we've got equity gains, which is fantastic, right? So these are the kind of things that everybody likes to hear and have. So yeah, please, questions, and sorry for sort of tangenting and all that kind of stuff. Sorry, David, if you don't mind, Anastasia.
Okay, so my question is this, just on strategy. So let's say, okay, I confess, I have door knock, don't like it, but I think I'm in a right area. There's 500 homes where I live, the pocket. And I've door knocked there in the past, and then I get, tired of it and I quit. So, but I'm trying to think of a strategy for, let's say you're looking at any pocket, this might help anybody else in the room. You got 500 houses. Like, how often, what's the frequency of door knocking? How often do you go back? What time of day? This type of thing. So just strategically how to manage it, and time frame, and was your, just a clarification, did you say your conversion was 20%? Like,
yeah, thereabouts.
Okay, that's pretty good.
Yeah. Anytime is the right time to go door knocking. People will tell you don't go at 8:30. Go at 8:30. What? Like, why not? People are up. Everybody's home right now. Just door knock. Just go. Like,
how often do you go back to the same street? Is what I mean. Like, okay, I'm talking about frequency. So
yeah, no, fair enough. So yeah, okay. So with 500 houses, there's about 1,000 in the pocket that I'm farming right now in Rosebank. And I also do Amberley and like a couple other spots in Pickering. So, and also, knocking around because a client just picked up an investment property in that area and stuff too. So, I was knocking that area and it sort of carries on like that too. So, but in Rosebank, there's about 1,000 houses. So I sort of attribute it to that. If I go 4 times a week at 4 hours a day, I'm probably repeating by the end of the month. So which is perfect because, for me anyway, I think so, because you go back, and I mean, look, you're gonna get those guys like, hey man, I told you, 3 weeks ago I wasn't interested, and I was like, did anything change in those 3 weeks? Because things changed for me. The market shifted. Did you know? I mean, it happens quick, right? So like, there's always things to talk about, and I'm just trying to spark a good conversation. I mean, some people will just shut it down. You don't want those people as clients anyway, so. Yes.
So you sometimes make a mistake going to the same door and then just whatever.
Well, I mean, I don't think it's a mistake. I mean, I just go back, right? Like, some people will track which doors are like, this guy's, a never ever, or this guy shut me down, or I don't really want to do that because, things change. Maybe the guy loses his job, or heaven forbid, like something like that changes. So I just kind of keep going. I know. Yeah. Sorry.
So you don't count the doors that they don't open to go back immediately. You just keep going.
Yeah, just keep going. Just keep going. I mean, I'm hitting the beat, and this is the thing. If you're farming an area, this is why, because I'm farming the area, so it's rinse and repeat, right? Like I know I'm going back anyway, so if that guy wasn't home, I mean, maybe he's gonna be home the next time, and door knocking is a little bit of a crapshoot that way anyway, right? So, but the consistency is you have to just go. You are missing business if you don't go. Right? There's business to be had out there. They want to see your beautiful smiling faces, all of you, and it's a great form of business. So thank you so kindly. Thank you.
All right, Matthew Glowacki. Thank you, Matt.